Tonight on Bridge City News, the Alberta Party now has a candidate for Lethbridge East. We will introduce you to Ali Taylor. Lethbridge police have a warning about counterfeit $50 bills which are circulating. We will tell you how to spot a fake. And we have the story of a Lethbridge man who was once lost but is now found. Norm shares his story of beating his alcoholic addiction. Thanks so much for joining us. The provincial election is coming up April 16th, and the Alberta Party now has a candidate for Lethbridge East. She is former journalist Ali Taylor. Ms. Taylor and her family relocated to Alberta in 1988 from Winnipeg. She used to work on the Finance Advisory Board with the City of Airdrie. She also served on the Board of Directors for the Calgary Immigrants Women's Association. One of her biggest passions heading into the election is ensuring early childhood education is an option for all Albertans. She's a mother herself of 3 and currently works in the financial industry. UCP leader Jason Kenney says if he becomes premier on April 16th, his party would operate under the rules for gay-straight alliances that were developed before the NDP came to power. Kenney made the announcement at the Calgary Jewish Academy yesterday. He said they would implement the former PC government's Education Act of 2014 to replace the NDP's amended School Act. The Education Act included a provision to allow gay-straight alliances. Those are clubs meant to make LGBTQ2+ kids feel safe and welcome, but only if schools wanted the clubs. A flashpoint of the NDP legislation was a prohibition on school officials telling parents if their kids joined the clubs. Last summer, faith-based schools and parents lost a bid to have a judge put the law on hold until there was a rule on its constitutionality. Premier Rachel Notley was also in Calgary, saying the New Democrats would expand the $25 a day daycare if they're re-elected next month. Notley said the plan would include adding 13,000 daycare spaces to the current 62,000 spots in the province. UCP leader Jason Kenney called the announcement massive new spending and said only a few parents would benefit. He said the NDP plan excludes rural families, shift workers, and parents who work at home. Lethbridge police are warning businesses to be on the lookout for fake $50 bills. Since the end of February, police have responded to 5 cases where counterfeit notes were discovered. The fake bills feel similar to the real ones, but the holographic images in the clear window are smudged or almost entirely blacked out. Police say before accepting bills for payment, check for security features by touching, tilting, and turning the bill over. Feel the raised ink on the large 50, look at the frosted maple leaf window to see its transparent outline, and feel the raised ink on the words Bank of Canada. This man fought his way back from alcoholism and is willing to share his story of hope. Today, Norman Saunders says he spent most of his life dependent on alcohol and drugs and finally decided to seek help in the darkness of his addiction. BCN's Loris Alexander shares his battle to sobriety.
Let's try this again. I guess my first time I ever thought I became addicted was when I was around 15. I grew up with not a great childhood. A lot of violence through school and at home.
Norman's childhood set the stage for his alcohol addiction, and that dependency turned into a coping mechanism.
It made an appearance every time something went bad, where I lost a job or lost a relationship.
Alcohol gave Norman a sense of false security.
It was just what I saw. It was, I guess, a learned behavior. I thought that, being around alcohol was something that I had to do in order to have fun, to have friends, to be involved with my work and things like that. And then it's totally false.
Then tragedy struck, and that was a wake-up call for Norman.
A friend of mine OD'd in front of me. I tried to save that person, and that person didn't come back.
Norman says his sobriety called for a complete change in lifestyle, and that's when he sought help with Streets Alive.
I had to change my old habits, my old patterns and behaviors, and it's not just overnight it's going to happen. It's through constant repetition, but hanging around with people that are doing it, living life sober and clean, that's what I found is the big turning point in my life.
Norman credits Streets Alive and God for revolutionizing his life.
God has always been there. It's me. My will blocked him out. My will said, no, I don't need your help. I don't need the help of somebody else in here at Streets. And when I had to give up, total surrender, and ask for help, great things have happened.
Norm is now almost 18 months sober and says the key to his recovery is 1 Corinthians 16:13. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, and be strong. For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
1 year ago, Canada was rocked by the news of a fatal bus crash that claimed the lives of 16 people. The Humboldt Broncos bus crash has prompted the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce to conduct training sessions to help local businesses deal with, respond to, and adapt when horrific events unfold.
This event today is to look at the tragedy that occurred last year and look at how they handled the situation from a risk management point of view, and how we as business owners need to look at how, when a tragedy does occur, do we have things in place that can help us manage through the processes, whether it's working with the people, working with the community, working with emergency services, then going back and helping that community, our community, through the different results of whatever that tragedy was.
Voss adds that the risk management discussed today will also aid businesses in close proximity to safe consumption sites to deal with urgent matters in relation to the overdose of opioids. Lethbridge police were called out to an accident earlier today at the intersection of University Drive and Columbia Boulevard West. We had reports of a minivan collided with a white full-size pickup.
Just before 9:30 this morning, 4 vehicles were southbound on University Drive approaching Columbia Boulevard. We're still looking into the reasons why, but one of the vehicles did not stop for the red light like the other ones did, and then the accident occurred. One of the drivers was taken to the Chinook Hospital for assessment, and we believe that he is injured, but we don't know the extent.
Traffic was delayed by quite a bit as a result of the accident. No word yet if alcohol or speed was a factor in the collision. An investigation into the crash continues. Moving to a seniors or personal care home is not that simple. Adding to the anxiety is the separation from loving pets that have been part of our lives for years. As Naveen Day reports, St. John Ambulance provides a dose of puppy love to those who need it the most.
For many of us, stress relief comes in the form of 4 paws, lots of fur, and puddles of drool. The Therapy Dog Program, a service of St. John Ambulance, improves the lives of those who need comfort and companionship. Community Service Coordinator for the program, Nicole Bosch, says the dog visits offer many benefits that improve the quality of lives.
We visit a lot of senior homes, and a lot of seniors may have always had a pet, and they miss that companionship and interaction, and really enjoy having a chance to visit with our volunteer owners and the dogs. And you can see a lot of people's faces brighten up as soon as they see the dogs.
In addition to seniors' homes just like this, the dogs are a hit at university and college campuses. One popular guest is Catherine Champagne's pug named Doug.
He thinks it's just like another day. He gets really excited to go, and we go see all the people. He gets pet for a whole hour and then he sleeps after. But for us, it's really important for people to get the chance to see him and pet him. And lots of kids miss their dogs at home, and they just, they really enjoy it, and their reactions are pretty awesome too.
The program has over 70 therapy dog volunteers that conduct over 600 visitations per year in Alberta. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thanks to a waterline break in the village of Barons, Alberta Health Services has issued a boil water advisory. All residents and businesses are advised to bring water to a boil for at least a minute prior to consumption. That includes using water for drinking, brushing teeth, cleaning food, preparing juices and infant formula, or making ice. Water used for bathing or washing clothes does not need to be boiled. The advisory remains in effect until further notice. The federal election is slated for October, but it appears as though Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is already in campaign mode. The PM was in Maple Ridge, BC, promoting the Liberal government's new budget, saying his government has now made housing more affordable for first-time homebuyers.
In this year's budget, we modernized the Home Buyers Plan, increasing the amount that people can withdraw from their RRSP from $25,000 to $35,000. But we can't just treat the symptoms of sky-high housing prices. We have to deal with the causes as well. When there aren't enough properties on the market, more people are competing for the same places, which forces the costs up for buyers and renters. Budget 2019 invests in new builds and helps municipalities grow their housing supply.
Federal Conservative leader Andrew Scheer called on the Prime Minister to allow Jody Wilson-Raybould to speak openly and freely about the SNC-Lavalin affair at the Commons Ethics Committee. He says Canadians need to hear more about the weeks after she was shuffled from the Justice portfolio to Veterans Affairs until she resigned from Cabinet.
First and foremost, he must allow it to proceed and he must cooperate with it. His unilateral shutdown of the Justice Committee investigation was one of the most blatant abuses of power we have ever seen. He cannot do this again. Second, he must extend the privilege and cabinet waiver to Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Ms. Philpott so they can speak freely about all events, as Liberals now apparently want them to.
Michael Avenatti, best known for representing Stormy Daniels in lawsuits against U.S. President Donald Trump, was arrested yesterday on charges he tried to extort millions of dollars from Nike.
The charges are based on Avenatti's scheme to extract more than $20 million in payments from a public company by threatening to use his ability to garner publicity to inflict financial and reputational harm on the company. Avenatti's conduct had nothing to do with zealous advocacy for a client or any other kind of legitimate legal work. Instead, Avenatti used illegal and extortionate threats for the purpose of obtaining millions of dollars in payments for himself.
Avenatti also faces wire and bank fraud charges in Los Angeles. If convicted, he could face up to 50 years in prison. All charges against actor Jussie Smollett have been dropped. Smollett had been accused of staging a hate crime and filing a false police report about it. The decision to drop the charges is a dramatic reversal in a case in which Chicago police alleged last month that this 36-year-old Empire actor hired two acquaintances to attack him in late January to promote his career. The state attorney's office did not explain why the felony disorderly charges were dropped, except to say it came after reviewing the case facts. Smollett also agreed to forfeit his $10,000 bond. Smollett's lawyer says her client's slate has been wiped clean.
Today, as you have figured out, the state made a motion to nolly-pros the charges against Jussie Smollett and to seal the record in this case. We believe that it was the correct result in this case. We're very happy for this result, and we are very anxious for Jussie to get on with his career and his life.
First of all, I want to thank my family, my friends, the incredible people of Chicago and all over the country and the world who have prayed for me, who have supported me, who've shown me so much love. No one will ever know how much that has meant to me, and I will forever be grateful.
Smollett reported to police in January that he was attacked in Chicago in an incident that ended with a noose around his neck and bleach poured on him. Police investigated the case as a possible hate crime. A new poll found that 2/3 of Americans support stricter gun laws. A UC Berkeley gun expert, however, says that Americans should not expect quick changes to national gun policy like those made in New Zealand after mass shootings in 2 mosques.
The constituency that cares specifically about semi-automatic rifles is substantially larger in the United States in 2019 than it ever was or ever will be in New Zealand. And it was an enormous impact event in New Zealand. Semi-automatic rifles are not deeply ingrained in the culture there. The reason that New Zealand can change the policies that it's changing now so quickly is that those aren't even regarded as the major elements in their gun control strategy.
A new movie hits theaters on Friday. It is called Unplanned, the controversy surrounding Planned Parenthood and an abortion clinic, the inside of the clinic that many do not want you to see. Robia Scott is one of the stars in the movie, and she says even though the film has an R rating from the Motion Picture Association of America, you should still go and see it.
An R rating usually stems from nudity, sexuality, foul language, and violence. And Unplanned has no nudity, it has no sexuality, it has no foul language. But the Motion Picture Association did say by seeing the abortion on screen, they deemed it violent, which was an admission in itself that, you know, they are actually saying abortion is a violent act. So we are very strongly on our team saying this is an R-rated movie that parents do want their teenagers to see, that churches do want to have their congregation attend.
Catch the full interview with Ms. Scott discussing the controversial new movie Unplanned coming up in the second half of our show. U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed the reigning NHL champion Washington Capitals to the Oval Office yesterday. He wanted to congratulate them on winning the Stanley Cup.
Today we welcome to the White House the 2018 Stanley Cup champions, the Washington Capitals, and it's really a special team, and they have a special owner, a man who's been a great success over his lifetime. You've got your son here with you too, I believe, right? So thank you very much. And your new head coach, Todd Reardon. Todd, thank you very much, and good luck in the playoffs. That's going to be starting very soon. And we welcome, most importantly, the entire Capitals team. They're winners. They know how to win, and I think you're going to see that starting in a little while. You had a truly incredible season last season, defending against your arch rivals and two-time reigning champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins. How are they doing, Ted?
They'll be in the playoffs.
They're never easy, right?
You know.
Congratulations again to the Washington Capitals. And in the WHL, the Lethbridge Hurricanes are taking on the Calgary Hitmen in Game 3 of their best-of-7 affair tonight at the Saddledome. The Canes lead the series 2-0. Lots of sunshine again today with double-digit temperatures. Things are cooling off slightly, however. I'll have a complete look at the weather picture in just a moment. Lots of sunshine and warm again today. Tonight, mainly cloudy, cooling off to -2. A mixture of sun and cloud tomorrow and a high near 10. Cooling off Thursday under a mainly sunny sky with a high of only 5. Warming up slightly to 7 degrees on Friday. Look at Saturday's forecast. Sunshine and warming up to a beautiful 16. A low-pressure system returns on Sunday, bringing more clouds and a high of 7. Monday overcast and a high near 6 degrees. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 8 and an average low of -5. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1946 at 19 degrees, and the record low was -24 in 1955. Sunrise was at 7:22, sunset at 7:52. Looking at tomorrow's national temperatures now, Victoria will be mainly sunny at 13. Vancouver will also have sunshine at 13 degrees. A slight chance of flurries in Calgary with a high of only 5. 5 and flurries as well for Edmonton on Wednesday. Rain and 6 is on tap for Regina. A good chance of showers and 5 for Saskatoon tomorrow. Expect 9 and rain in Winnipeg. In the central part of the country, Toronto will have sunshine and 9 degrees. Ottawa will be mainly sunny and 6. Sunshine and 6 also on tap for Montreal. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will be sunny and 6. Sunshine and slightly cooler in Halifax at 4 degrees. A chance of flurries and 0 for Charlottetown, PEI. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect sun mixed with cloud and a high of -2 for tomorrow. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he's considering sending a delegation to China to see if they can work on a solution to the Chinese decision to block imports of Canadian canola. Chinese officials say they detected several hazardous organisms in recent canola shipments from Regina. They gave the same reason for earlier blocking canola shipped from Winnipeg.
We take very seriously the situation around canola and the Chinese decisions. We know that the canola produced here in Canada is top quality, and the oversight, inspection, and science that surrounds what we do here is top-notch and world-class, and that is certainly something that we are going to continue to impress upon our Chinese interlocutors on this issue. We understand how much of a concern this is to farmers right across Western Canada and the entire industry, and we are going to continue to work with them and indeed with China to try and resolve this situation. We have heard very clearly that there is a significant interest in sending a high-level delegation to China to talk about the extraordinary work that we do in terms of oversight, inspection, and the science around ensuring the safety of and the quality of everything Canada exports.
Premier Rachel Notley says if Ottawa cannot resolve the canola issue with China, then they should offer supply relief to the industry. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe echoed the concerns over reports the Chinese are not buying Canadian canola. Trudeau says Ottawa will continue to work with Chinese officials to demonstrate that canola should continue to flow safely from Canada to China. More than 1 million Britons took to the streets recently protesting the UK leaving the European Union. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says many are having a change of heart and no longer want that divorce with the EU.
It seems like a lot of Brits, including this million and 5 million in total who have signed a petition, are very eager to exit from Brexit and to really abandon this idea, whether it's cold feet or watching what's going on in the world around them. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good because there's a reason why the UK got to the point of wanting a Brexit. And now, how does this look when they're almost going back to the EU with their tail between their legs and saying, we made a mistake, we don't want that divorce?
Catch my full interview with our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari discussing Brexit and where ISIS may strike next. That's coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Premier Rachel Notley says if the NDP party is re-elected next month, they would expand the $25 a day daycare. Notley said the plan would include adding 13,000 daycare spaces to the current 62,000 spots in the province. UCP leader Jason Kenney called the announcement massive new spending and said only a few parents would benefit. He says the NDP plan excludes rural families, shift workers, parents who work at home, and those who prefer less formal kinds of childcare. The ISIS caliphate has now been defeated in Syria, but now the Islamic State has targeted various countries in Europe for attack. Our ISIS expert Lisa Daftari has details next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. Want to learn about our friend the bee? The Lethbridge Bee Enthusiasts welcome everyone to a presentation by Megan Evans about bumblebees on Wednesday, March 27th at 6:30 p.m. at the Helen Schuler Nature Center. It's free to attend. For more information, email Chelsea at csherbert@gmail.com. Voice of the Martyrs Canada presents Solitary Refinement, Incredible True Stories from the Persecuted Church on Friday, March 29th at 7 p.m. at King of Kings Fellowship. Be inspired by powerful testimonies from our brothers and sisters in Christ. Admission is free, but contributions will be gratefully accepted. A reception will follow the presentation. For more details, visit vomcanada.com/touring. It's the 15th annual Woods Homes Children's Benefit Gala taking place Saturday, March 30th at 6 p.m. at the Coast Hotel Lethbridge. This special night is in support of the Emergency Youth Shelter, The Core. This year's gala includes a delicious dinner, silent and live auctions, and live entertainment by the Chevelles. For tickets and sponsorship opportunities, contact Colleen Campbell by calling 403-317-1777 or visit woodshomes.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Special counsel Robert Mueller found no conspiracy between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russia during the 2016 election. To talk more about this and some of the other big stories from around the globe is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari. Lisa, has Trump now officially been exonerated? Was this, as he put it, an illegal takedown that failed?
Well, he hasn't officially been exonerated, but the facts of the case point to the fact that he is exonerated. I tweeted this yesterday. I said that no collusion, no evidence, but no exoneration. This is obviously just more of the same. You know, the media, the left, they went after this with full confidence and they failed. They crashed, they burned. The facts tell a very different story. And now there has to be some accountability, and there won't be. When I say there has to be, I mean that would be in an ideal world where the media can take responsibility to not have this happen under any president, whether it's left or right, not have this sensationalism be a part of our reporting, not have this, you know, very loosey-goosey type of no source checking, no fact checking. It's awful. This is the president of the United States, regardless of what your political party is. It reflects on our country. It reflects on our national security. It reflects on how we stand among nations. You're in our northern neighbor, and you look in and you see there's a civil war going on in the United States. And I mean, how are we supposed to deal with threats like China, like the Iranian regime, deal with what's going on in Afghanistan or Syria, when in our own country they're so divided? And to think that there's no sigh of relief when you know that your president didn't do anything illegal. You'd think that they would be happy, but they're upset. They're upset that they couldn't catch or frame their own president. So that's where it stands. This is the reality that we live with day in and day out. A lot of focus on this, and as a result, there is a lot of ignorance on a lot of other very important topics.
And that's biblical too. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. But I don't want to talk too badly about what's happening in the United States, because we have our own issues right here in Canada with the SNC-Lavalin affair and the Norman trial coming up. Now, a story we recently had on Bridge City News was another rocket was launched from the Gaza Strip into Israel. This latest one, Lisa, badly injuring 7 people. Protests in Gaza continue, and Hamas security forces are cracking down on those protests. I mean, they're beating up demonstrators, raided homes, and detained journalists, about 1,000 people in total.
Right, and then that's what they're doing back at home, and then they're lobbing these missiles into Israel, into civilian areas. So, and there's no global condemnation of the terror group Hamas for doing all of this. This is an awful, awful reality of what goes on outside of Israel daily. I mean, now you hear the peanut gallery kind of talking about how this is in response to President Trump's announcent that the Golan Heights will be formally recognized as Israeli territory, etc. Of course, it was Israeli territory, and it was. What are we going to do? Give it to Syria that can't even keep its own land intact right now? These are excuses. This is what goes on day in and day out. Missiles being intercepted by the Iron Dome in Israel, civilian areas, schools, pizza shops, buses getting bombed, being targeted, of course, because they want that death toll to rise. And they don't care where that death toll rises, whether it's among their own people or among Israelis. You can tell by the way that they're cracking down on the protesters. I did a piece in 2014 talking about how the Palestinians are more upset with Hamas, their own leadership, than they are at the Israelis for the plight of their reality, for the way that they live day in and day out. That piece got me on the Hamas hit list. So it must have struck a chord somewhere within the Hamas hierarchy. But there's much truth to that, because you can tell by the protests going on inside Gaza right now. They may be cheering, but that is no longer something that rallies them or keeps them content. When they realize that their reality is so different from their Arab brothers and sisters who are living within Israeli territory, they realize that something is off, and it's their own leadership. So, note to those at the UN, we call it a very useless body, but when you're going to make condemnations, you should direct them towards the right people.
After vowing to strangle Iran's economy, the Trump administration is divided now over how far to squeeze Tehran. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, there's a very nuanced degree with which we can economically squeeze Iran. What does that mean? Well, before, under the Obama administration, we had sanctions against Iran, but what I call diet sanctions. They were light sanctions, and they weren't targeting the regime in places that would paralyze its economy to the point where it couldn't stand on the global stage. Now, after President Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal in May, the sanctions that were imposed on the Iranian regime are very tactical, very strategic, and are pointed in a way that are meant to suffocate the regime in a way, but not destabilize society. Meaning the people are not going to suffer as much. Of course, they're going to suffer. People, hearing this think, wow, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Of course, under sanctions, people suffer. That's a fact. But the point is that the intention of these sanctions is to put more damage on the regime than on the people of Iran. That's A. And B, not to destabilize the global community and to uproot perhaps what we have going on with China, the talks that we have with China and the West. or any of the other 11 nations that are allowed to purchase oil from Iran. It's meant to have that stabilizing effect so that we don't have everything go crazy and destabilize the Middle East for ourselves as well. So there is a sweet spot for sanctions against Iran, and we're trying to strike that. That's why there is this debate whether to go stronger or to hold back.
U.S.-backed forces declared victory in Syria recently, that the caliphate was defeated. But Lisa, there may be a new deadly threat emerging.
Yes. This is the threat that we've been hearing about all along. You know, it's like that arcade game where you smack one thing that, I forget what it's called, whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, yeah.
You knock it down and the other one comes up, right? This is what ISIS is. We squeeze them out of certain areas of Iraq and Syria, which is what has been done. This is the last stronghold in Syria, but we know that they're planning and plotting. Well, we know that because of their very, very robust presence online, on the web, on the dark web for sure. I mean, that's where their main recruitment takes place in the form of videos and social media platforms. But also, you know, where they sprout up in different areas and asking for these recruits to launch lone wolf attacks in their own neighborhoods, whether it's in Europe, which is the latest threat, is that there are going to be more of these attacks sprouting up in Europe, or in parts of the Philippines, or in Northern Africa, or in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. So, you know, we try our best to rid the globe of this very cancerous influence, but we know that when they go back to work, they go back to plotting, and they will want to, you know, come up with more ways of creating terrorism globally. You know, one of the new faces that, or new strategies that ISIS brought about was this do-it-yourself jihadism. And because of that, they can get that one guy in Spain or in France or in the UK to stand up and launch that attack in his neighborhood, the same neighborhood that took him in or he's been living in his whole life. This is the power that ISIS has with recruitment.
The war in Syria also claimed the life of a driver for an NBC News team. A report says the explosion near the vehicle killed the driver, but the rest of the team were unharmed.
Yeah, this is, you know, what's interesting is that for the longest time, journalists were very, very apprehensive about getting into Syria. We relied a lot on people who were on the ground there to Skype in, to make calls. I know I used to do that all the time, to find, you know, sources on the ground, whether it was Yazidis or Assyrians or Kurds or members of the Free Syrian Army. I remember interviewing dozens of these types of people that were very eager to get on their phones and make those calls. But now with this latest stronghold being taken down and Trump making the announcement that we're withdrawing from Syria, a larger number of journalists, photojournalists, started embedding themselves with the troops to get the footage from this last battle. For some reason, this is what has been interesting, either to prove or disprove the fact that we're done in Syria. This is the interest that's being driven by the mainstream media.
Let's make our way over to Afghanistan now. Voice of America is reporting that Taliban says they've recently killed 54 Afghan forces.
Yes, more of the same, but the Taliban is really going to town on these civilian areas. This one was in a southern province. You know, they don't flinch. They don't flinch. And to think that this is the group very similar to the Palestinians and Hamas that we just talked about, that the West is almost forced to face in a ceasefire or in any kind of deal in moving out of Afghanistan and trying to create some stability in Afghanistan.
Venezuela's opposition is fearing a major crackdown after President Nicolas Maduro threatened to arrest more people, or the diabolical pro-imperialist puppets, as he's calling them. Can't he say how much he's really hurting his people? Killing his people?
That's never been a concern for him. Had it been a concern for him, the people of Venezuela would not have suffered to the degree with which they have suffered. Hallie and I have been talking about this for over a year, I think, at this point. Maduro, at this point, when he stops humanitarian aid from reaching his people that's being sent from other places, I mean, that's life or death. That just says he just doesn't care about that death toll. And again, we've said, Venezuela is a very oil-rich country. No one in that country should be suffering or wondering where their next meal will come from, and that is exactly what is going on. He started rounding up people, arresting people, most prominently Guaido, the opposition leader. His right-hand man was arrested last week, obviously a very symbolic apprehension and meant to serve a very loud and clear message to Guaido himself and anyone who supports him that they will just round them up and lock them up. Very, very unfortunate situation. And as we've said before, this is going to get much worse before it gets any better. And the people of Venezuela are stuck and really suffering in this crossfire.
Very sad with those socialist governments. China is pledging more openness in hopes of reaching a trade deal with the United States. Share with our viewers just how important it is for the two world's biggest economies to find that common ground.
Yeah, I think both sides are really itching for some sort of resolution that will benefit both, which it will. Both have so much to lose and so much to gain. So hopefully, should there be, and hopefully very soon, some sort of resolution that allows China and the U.S. to get back on a path. Both leaders have expressed that they're interested in working things through. They're getting warmer, and it seems like from the U.S. point of view that they have worked something out that hits all the notes that the U.S. is concerned with, that Trump, even as a candidate, was very concerned with, not to allow China to take advantage of this arrangement with global trade. And now, based on what you just read, Hal, it seems that China, of course, as well, wants to get things back on track.
Lisa, when I think of a march, like a pro-life march, pro-pipeline rally march, I think maybe 10, 15, 20,000 people is pretty good. 1 million people joined the Put It to the People march in London, England, calling for a new Brexit referendum. British Prime Minister Theresa May is losing control of Brexit.
Yes, a very stark pivot from where we were, how long ago? 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, in June, I believe, with regards to the original Brexit vote that had so many enthusiastic proponents. And now it seems like a lot of Brits, including this million and 5 million in total who have signed a petition, are very eager to exit from Brexit and to really abandon this idea, whether it's cold feet or watching what's going on in the world around them. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good because there's a reason why the UK got to the point of wanting a Brexit. And now, how does this look when they're almost going back to the EU with their tail between their legs and saying, we made a mistake. We don't want that divorce. So, you know, Theresa May caught in a very, very, very precarious situation, her own political present and future on the line. And it seems as though that's what she's trying to defend more than anything else, but to no avail.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. Would this call into question her leadership, and would she be forced to resign?
I mean, it looks that way. A lot of people say, not that she would be forced to resign, but it would probably put her in that position of such a weakness, particularly because she's pushing so hard for this and cannot get any help on it. You know, it just shows, you know, who are her constituents at this point. And if that is what the reality is, then, you know, she doesn't belong in office if she can't rally people towards her cause, or at least to listen to her. She's really alone on this, and I think it's going to reflect very poorly on her political future.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the way it plays out. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Abortion continues to be an issue that causes clashes in our culture. Many politicians and media players say the issue is settled in Canada, but other Canadians believe there should be some restrictions on abortion. A new motion picture is going to stir up some controversy on the topic. The film Unplanned will be in theaters March 29th, and here's a sneak peek.
Abby Johnson is in the other room.
Here.
Our first order of business is to present Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year Award. Abby Johnson.
This is Abby. She's our newest volunteer escort. Abby, this is Cheryl D'Alessandro.
I'd be the youngest director in Planned Parenthood history.
You'll actually be in charge of the abortions at your clinic?
I have a chance to make a real difference.
No matter what you do for the rest of your life, you're still gonna be a baby killer.
The only thing that's changed is you, Abby. Can you even hear yourself talk right now about these procedures? These are little babies.
I'm not going to apologize for doing a job that helps women in crisis.
There's still a part of me that isn't sure.
I know. But the one thing that all experts agree on is that at this stage, the fetus can't feel anything.
Sorry to bother you, but they need an extra person in the back room. Are you free?
I saw it. It was like it was twisting and fighting for its life.
We commend the souls of these hundreds of children. And Lord, we pray to end abortion.
I really appreciate what you've done for us. I'll not forget it.
22,000 abortions. How do I even comprehend that?
Rough day at the office?
You can say that.
It's your dad and me. You were our baby from the moment of conception.
We are paying you to be a perfect instrument of corporate policy. We are an abortion provider.
I can't be a part of this anymore. Everything that they told us is a lie.
Don't underestimate the repercussions of this. You gotta be careful.
Rhonda, please don't do this! Rhonda!
Let me tell you what's gonna happen if you walk through that door.
Congratulations. You've made an enemy of one of the most powerful organizations on the planet.
Joining me now is Robia Scott, who's one of the stars in the movie. She also happens to be a minister and joins me now from Orange County, California. Welcome to Bridge City News.
Hi, Hal. Thanks for having me.
Robia, can you first of all briefly share a little bit of your personal story? Now, you were in the entertainment business for years, and then along the way you made a few changes and you actually became a Christian. Tell our viewers a bit about that journey.
Well, as a teenager, I started dancing and I became a professional and working as a teen. And then I wound up getting hired by Prince to be the pearl half of the Diamonds and Pearls from his hit album in the 90s. Don't know if you remember that one. And then I did some TV after that, some acting on shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it was during my time on Buffy that I became a Christian. And very quickly just sensed that my 20 years in the entertainment industry was coming to an end and that God was transitioning me into ministry. So I walked away from my career, jumped into serving God, jumped into ministry, and that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years. I travel, I speak at churches and conferences. I wrote a book called Counterfeit Comforts, and I really have had no intention of going back to Hollywood, but God had another plan. And it just through a random set of circumstances, I was introduced to the writer-directors of this film Unplanned. They told me about the movie. I was intrigued. They invited me to audition, and then they cast me in one of the starring roles.
Well, let's kind of look over the movie exactly. It's based on the real-life story of Abby Johnson. Tell me more about it.
Abby Johnson was a young gal recruited from her college campus by Planned Parenthood. They were there with the booth, touting what they like to share, that they're about women's empowerment and health, education, all of that. And Abby was Christian from a pro-life family, but she was drawn into the idea that she would be helping women. So she went to intern. I actually play the head of Planned Parenthood. I play her boss in the movie and the face of the organization. She started interning and then very quickly rose up the ranks until she herself was clinic director. And in the 8 years that she was there, she oversaw about 22,000 abortions. Until one day she was actually taken into the procedure room. She got a look at what she was doing, and she realized that she was not dealing with a bunch of cells. She saw in the ultrasound a perfectly formed baby resisting and fighting from being, not to be graphic, but sucked out of the womb. And at that point, God just opened her eyes, and she left Planned Parenthood and is now a pro-life activist. So this story is based on her book. This is a true story.
Now, you played the role of the clinic director of Planned Parenthood. What was that like? Did you learn anything about the mindset of people who see things maybe a little differently on the pro-choice side of things?
Well, absolutely. I knew a little bit about Planned Parenthood, but obviously when I got this role, I really delved into what the corporation is all about. And I learned a lot that I think this movie is going to reveal and lift the veil, that Planned Parenthood is not a place where you can actually go and plan your parenthood. If you're pregnant and you want prenatal care, you want to consider, having help becoming a parent, you can't do that at Planned Parenthood. If you go there and you really want to know all your choices, if I'm going to be a parent, if I'm going to adopt, you can't do that at Planned Parenthood. They specifically don't even let you see your ultrasound because they know when you do, a mother bonds with her baby when she sees the ultrasound. So they purposefully don't do that because they're not really there to give you choices. They're there to give you one choice and to steer you toward abortion. So this was just eye-opening for me, and I think will be for many people when they see that the motive behind the company is about building the company and making a lot of money.
Now, is it true that the movie does show an inside look of what actually happens behind the scenes inside of an abortion clinic?
It does. It really puts it all up there on screen. It's not gratuitous, but it is clear. So regardless of what side you stand on, I know for the pro-life side, people that have seen it, they just feel like they knew they were pro-life, but they didn't know why necessarily, or they didn't have the same fire and passion after they saw the movie. And then for pro-choicers as well, I think that for those who really believe in the right to choose, it would be good for them to see what it is that they're actually choosing and look at it with their eyes and make a more educated decision.
Some might argue that the film is trying to judge people who have abortions. Now, you've watched the entire film now since it's been edited and put together. Does it actually do that?
I've seen the film numerous times, and no, it doesn't do that at all. This film is not preachy, it's not Christian-y, judgmental, it's not that in any way. It's actually the opposite. It shows the pro-life side in a positive and negative light. It shows the pro-choice side in a positive and negative light. And the end result is really a message of hope, of redemption. It is not to bring shame or condemnation at all, not even a little bit, none. I mean, it should do the opposite, which is really, if anyone had been through that experience, hopefully this will help them to release any shame or guilt they might still be carrying from that experience.
Abby Johnson even won an Employee of the Year award from Planned Parenthood. What was it that really changed her mind about abortion?
Well, it was a specific moment. She had always been on the administration side. And so she was telling women everything that she had been taught, that we're not really dealing with a baby, it's just a bunch of cells, until she was taken in. For whatever reason, they were shorthanded and she went into a procedure. She had never been in the room for a procedure, and she actually held the ultrasound wand while the abortionist was about to perform the abortion. And when she did, she saw a perfectly formed baby, and she actually saw the baby fighting and trying to resist. And she said to the doctor, "Oh my goodness, the baby is resisting." And the doctor said, "They always do that. That's why I use the ultrasound, so I can see what I'm doing." And then she sat there and watched, again, not to be graphic, but she watched the baby piece by piece being pulled out of the womb, and then the womb is empty. And it's just such a, it's so impactful when you see it, that you really can't be the same. No matter who goes into the theater, what you believe when you go in, when you leave, you will be changed, because it's just, it's an extraordinary story.
Rabia, it's not uncommon to see news stories vilifying pro-lifers praying outside of abortion clinics. Do you think they can really make a difference?
Well, what I love about this film is it shows both sides of the pro-life outside the clinic. It shows those who are the extremists, who aren't necessarily dealing in love, that are yelling mean things. And then it shows the people that are operating in a very compassionate, loving, Christ-like nature. And that's another aspect that I appreciate about the film. It really shows the whole side of the picture. But what makes Abby have that real turnaround wasn't obviously people screaming at her as she's going to work. It was the relationship she developed with 40 Days for Life, those that did the prayer vigil, those that were there just in love and compassion. And it did make a difference. A statistic actually in the movie is that when people are praying outside of a Planned Parenthood clinic, they often have a 75% no-show rate.
So what do you say to a viewer who might be watching this program right now and say, you know what, I have the right to choose, it's my body? What do you say to that person?
Oh my goodness, that's a deep question. You know, I believe that, I don't believe personally that we have the right to kill a child, whether it's, a minute old, 6 months old, 9 months old, or even after birth, which is where our country in America here has made some choices that you can now, in the state of New York, kill a baby all the way up to birth for any reason at all. And then the Senate just voted that you could actually even terminate a baby after birth, which how we got there, I absolutely don't understand. Again, I think when people see this movie, even those who believe in a right to choose, when they see what it is they're actually choosing, I believe it will be eye-opening, and it will give it'll give the viewer some things to think about and some things to talk about.
Ashley Bratcher plays the part of Abby Johnson in the movie. I understand that when she let her mother know that she was going to be in the film, her mom revealed a deeply personal story. Are you able to share that?
This is an incredible story. Ashley was on set starting to film. She had just been there a few days and it was all last minute. They were right about to start filming the movie and they had not even cast her yet. So once they did, she had to get there and she was going full speed ahead. She hadn't even told her mother that she was doing the movie, and she called her mom and wanted to share the story, and she wanted to be very sensitive with her mom because her mom had told her that prior to having Ashley, she had had an abortion. So Ashley shared with her mom that she was working on this movie. She didn't want her mom to feel condemned. She didn't want her to feel shamed. As she told her the story of Abby Johnson and the role she was playing, her mother broke down, hysterical weeping, and then confessed to Ashley that when she was pregnant with Ashley, she actually went again to have another abortion, and she was literally on the table, ready to go forward. And something just made her change her mind, and she got up and left. So, I mean, just to know that God knows the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end, you know, here Ashley is now. She's really the face of this movie, and she almost did not exist.
Unfortunately, the Motion Picture Association of America has decided to give an R rating to Unplanned, which is kind of ironic considering that a 13-year-old could get an abortion but cannot attend the movie?
That is accurate. We received an R rating. We thought we would get an MP13. That would have been more favorable, obviously. The team believes that maybe there was a little bit of political action in there to try to block the movie from going forward, but we know it's going to go forward regardless. And an R rating usually stems from nudity, sexuality, foul language, and violence. And Unplanned has no nudity, it has no sexuality, it has no foul language. But the Motion Picture Association did say by seeing the abortion on screen, they deemed it violent, which was an admission in itself that, you know, they are actually saying abortion is a violent act. So we are very strongly on our team saying this is an R-rated movie that parents do want their teenagers to see, that churches do want to have their congregation attend. For us, R means recommended, it means relevant, it means real, and this is the kind of imagery that it's important. It's the truth up on the screen, and especially, like you said, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. I think it's imperative that these kids have a sense of what is going on, because what they're hearing in the mainstream media, what they're hearing at school is not the truth.
So where do you see the abortion debate going over the next few years? And do you think this film will have much of an impact?
I absolutely believe that this is for such a time as this film. The writer-directors actually had the rights to Abby's book for 6 years. And every time they went forward to start making the movie, they're men of prayer. And God said, nope, not yet. So they put it on the back burner. And then the next year they went to make it again. And God said, not yet. They put it on the back burner again. So this movie could have come out 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and it would have been impactful. But finally they were released to make the movie. And now it's coming out at this time and this season where what's going on in our culture, I mean, this topic is on the forefront. And I believe that this is just going to be, honestly, a weapon of love to be released through the country and all countries through the world. And I believe it has the potential to change hearts and to impact culture, to touch people individually and then corporately as a society.
Robia Scott, one of the stars of the movie Unplanned, in theaters March 29th. Thanks a lot for joining me today from Orange County, California.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.